Yo, how's it going everyone? Recently, I have been really enjoying the fun of Cyber Dragons, or Cydra, however you want to name this deck. Now, if you're not familiar with Cyber Dragons, which I highly doubt, but if you didn't know, this is a blind second OTK deck, which means that no matter the coin toss result, whether we win it or lose it, we want to go second. And the objective is always to break our opponent's board and OTK them, or at the very least, break their board enough so that we can win on the following turn. But 9 out of 10 times you do want to OTK with this deck just because, well, look at the cards that we have selected. We are not built to play from the long range. We are built to purely win in the first round that we play. Now, for the deck list that I'm using, I copied this deck list from Master Duel Meta, which I know I advise against net decking, so copying other people's decks that you see online. But when it comes to decks that you're not familiar with, it's good to start with a benchmark. So everything in this deck list is pretty much card for card what I copied. I'll reference who I copied in a moment. The only change I made was adding Ultimate Slayer, just because this card is really good for outing certain boss monsters like Baron, Dispater, Mirror Jade, just because they can't respond to it. Your monster effects cannot be activated in response to this card, as it can clearly be stated here. So it is really good for outing those Omni Negates or, non-target banishment, you name it. But I just want to say that this card is a huge brick against a Rise Heart or any other banishment effect. So if I'm under Dimension Shifter, this card sucks because you can't even activate it just because nothing can go to the graveyard. So yeah, that's the only time I didn't like this card, but I didn't win those games anyway, so it is what it is. Now for the deck list I just referenced, this was copied from the only guy that made Master 1 this season, so season 25. That is insane, guys, that he made Master 1. Like, blind second decks don't tend to always do too well. Mikanko is pretty good. Crusadia used to be pretty viable. But Cyber Dragons, it's insane that he did that. Because, like I said, this is card for card what he played. So I was really impressed. And particularly in the format we're in currently, Super Heavy Samurai, some of the boards you have to break with, like Manadium as well, are insane. Like, absolutely crazy. So, yeah, thoroughly impressed. Now, I just have to say I got 6 games from my ranked gameplay in Master 1, so I didn't climb the ladder with this deck at all. I don't want to give anyone the false impression there. And then I have 3 bonus replays from the recent TCG event, which surprisingly this deck did so well. It broke every board. I won 3 out of the 4 games I played, and I'll show you the one I lost as well because I do want to show you where this deck unfortunately doesn't shine. But look, like I said, this deck is so much fun to play, and there's even a structure deck to support this. There's a few cards that you do want to, buy of your own. Maybe not this, but stuff like Therion, King Regulus, very good. And then you can get this for free from the, from the solo mode. So it's quite a cost-efficient deck. You don't need 2 of these. Personally, I never ran into a point where I needed the second one, so I kind of regret it. But I got a Royal, so I was quite pleased. You don't really need Chaos Angel. It is a nice thing to opt in, but if you are looking to play this deck seriously, then yeah, maybe you do need to consider every card. I think the only card that I think was heavily required, well, 2 cards, Cyber Dragon Infinity and Anaconda, Vert Anaconda. This card, Verte Anaconda, my bad, is so good for getting into the final part of your play, because you banish this, you banish monsters from your graveyard, so you've already kind of link climbed into Cyber Dragon Seeger, as well as done your fusion summons into Rampage Dragon, and then you can build another Rampage Dragon. This deck can go really crazy if you get the right cards in your hand. But anyway, I have rambled enough. Let's go into the replays, and yeah, I can walk you through how great this deck really is. Right, so guys, let's go through some replays together. So in our first matchup, we are playing against Kashtira. Now, because I have a Kaiju, I'm not really that worried, and I have Harpy's Feather Duster, so any back row isn't really going to be much of a challenge. And look, he has Solemn Judgment, so even more luck to myself. So yeah, pretty pleased. He's going to go for full combo here, which to me is a Rise Heart, Shangri Era, and any back row, just because a Rise Heart by itself is good enough to deal with most decks. But yeah, the Kaiju, yeah, so glad I drew that. I would not have played this if it weren't for the Kaiju. So yeah, having the Kaiju, super beneficial. But the thing is, I don't have a Cyber Dragon, which is essential for the actual board break. So I was very lucky to have triple tactics and have it activatable. So yeah, he now uses Solemn Judgment. He's kindly reduced his own life points to 4,000, which makes the OTK a lot easier for us. And now that I have the 1 Cyber Dragon, and now I just Kaiju the Rise Heart, no longer a threat. And then with Clockwork, clean the board. And look, his last card was Caught by the Grave, which I was very lucky with, because if it was Imperm, it would have been GG's. But look, he reduced his life points again, so... And this is one of the more simple OTKs, but a very common theme in a lot of decks I've played against is that they tend to reduce their own life points through some form of card effect, and yeah. But anyway, look, this is Vanquish Soul. You saw I just max seed, so I'm able to draw 2 additional cards from that, which is great for blind second decks. We need all the help we can get. And then I shotgun him for impermanence. Honestly, you should probably save impermanence for the standby phase of your turn, just because then Rock of the Vanquisher cannot summon anything that turn. Luckily, he didn't have another Raisin in hand, so he wasn't going to be able to summon anything, but you should use it in the standby phase, guys. Now, he's going to add, I think it's Caesar. Yeah, so he's going to add Caesar to his hand. Now, the thing with Caesar is, the one card effect I really don't want for him to have is the non-target destruction, because he can only choose between that and being unaffected by activated effects of, you know, you can see on the here, like you can see here, unaffected by your opponent's activated effects this turn. So using Raigeki, I force him to use this effect here, and then for the rest of the turn, it's pretty much easy, just because I'm not going to be able to tribute him, you know, for my Clockwork plays. Don't even have Clockwork, but because of Cyber Repair Plant, I can add a Kaiju from my deck to that hand, tribute his Caesar, and then use Cyber Dragon Infinity to absorb the Kaiju that I just gave him. So puts us in a really good spot, and I have enough monsters on board to go into Verte Anaconda, and then just go into the rest of my fusion plays, and I'm pretty sure he scoops from here. Yeah, and that's pretty much game from there, guys. I've got 2 Omni Negates, and yeah, pretty much GG's. This particular duel, so you'll see I have Red Reboot and I draw into Power Bond. I just tried to use Power Bond instead of Overload Fusion. Wasn't a good shot, was really not a good option, trust me. And then Red Reboot, the only reason I put that in is because I was playing against a lot of Labyrinth, and then out of nowhere I stopped playing Labyrinth altogether, so it just became a completely dead card to me. So yeah, just opted that completely. And then you see in this duel anyway, I get some use out of it, but it doesn't really do much. And look, I've got no plays in my hand, so this is the only time that I really went round for round with a deck, and it's because he bricked, and technically so did I. Had no Cyber Dragons, eventually I did, and I was basically just playing against hand traps, which most hand traps can deal with Cyber Dragons, the ones in particular like Nibiru and Droll, but Maxi pretty much just allows them to go into the rest of their hand traps. So anyway, I use Power Fusion, I go into a big body Rampage, gets negated, I try to stop the negate, and then he does the same. And as you can see here, I didn't know that this particular Cyber Dragon was able to actually bring back this one here, a fusion Cyber Dragon. That's crazy. I didn't read that, you know, the ideal text, which is you can target a machine monster with 2100 attack or defense, and then turns out the fusion monster reaches that condition, and then I'm able to negate the Ash, make sure that Rampage Dragon can attack 3 times this turn. So I'm able to clear the board, go once, twice, once to the face, and then final shot with Cyber Dragon Infinity. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with this OTK, despite it being against, you know, pretty much no board. But oh, sorry about this. I must have fucked up that recording. Okay, this one will have to be silent, and then I'll put the rest on volume. Apologies for that, guys. So, and this is the one against Mathmech as well. So, okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so this guy manages to get full combo, which is Super Factorial, Cynic Conflict, and then Terahertz, as well as a Code Talker monster, which I'm pretty sure is Heat Soul. That's pretty much the common play for it now. But because I have a Kaiju, I can out the Cynic Conflict, or I can out the Laplation, but I'd rather stop the Cynic Conflict. Counter traps are really hard to deal with, and particularly because it banishes the card as well. I'm not really going to be able to interact with it. And then, of course, Clockwork Knight, I don't want that to be negated. This card in particular, I'm going to need. So the idea here was to Kaiju the Heat Soul, so that way Cynic Conflict was no longer a threat. And then just special summon my original Cyber Dragon, and then tribute his Terahertz to go into Mecha Fleet, because it will use any monster in the extra monster zones. And then yeah, he knew the play from there. So, and I'm pretty sure I was going to lose, because I've actually never lost to Cyber Dragons when I play Mathmech. Super Factorial is very annoying to deal with. So, and I think it's because he made a mistake here. He should have negated Clockwork Knight, and look, I've just tributed his whole board, and now I just let Clockwork Knight do the rest of the work. he would need very, very specific cards to, you know, end the end of this play. I know he has Silent Conflict, but he's not going to be able to climb into anything that can make it activatable, and I'm not really activating any effects that's going to do so. So I'm pretty sure he leaves at this point, because look, what can he do? He can't really climb. Like, I've faced it myself. Clockwork Knight just completely ends all of our plays. Let me just pause this right here. Bring the volume back up. Oh, okay, this one's all good. Yeah, apologies for that again. So this is Branded. Now, Branded is actually the toughest deck I can play against. Like, it is. I always lose to this deck, so I just had to put this one in there just because it was a very sweet victory, and it was all based on a mistake that my opponent made. So we'll get into that once he's completed his play. But essentially, he negates all of his own effects, and then I get rid of Mirror Jade using Ultimate Slayer. So he has a non-target management, he has a negate for the entire field, and then he has a target pop. So those are pretty good interactions. Now this is the mistake. So because he's used this, I think it's like Blazing Firing Star, whatever the name is, this card negates the effects of all other face-up cards on the field except for one chosen fusion monster. So Mirror Jade is the only card on the field that can activate its effect, and then using Ultimate Slayer, I'm just going to out the card anyway, so yeah, made no difference. Unfortunately, he did have Maxi, but look, we're going to go for game anyway. So the idea for me was to create Cyber Dragon Infinity, have a Omni Negate, and the amount of times I have lost because I've used the Negate at the wrong time, yeah, I was kicking myself a lot, so I made sure I didn't make the mistake this time. And that's because with Granguinol, I believe is the fusion monster, the one that just went to the graveyard now, essentially that card can special summon any Despia monster from the extra deck. And I've made the mistake before of letting it happen, thinking, oh, I'll just negate the monster that, you know, he brings out. But they have follow-on effects as well if they get destroyed, which, you know, Cyber Dragon Infinity does do. So yeah, because I negated that particular effect, which is when you want to use it, I have a clean board to OTK. So I was very, very pleased at that point. Now, I can't remember who I play here. I believe this is actually the last replay, guys. So, oh yeah, this is just, what do you call it? Gate Guardian. So, not my most meta glorious win. But, yeah, it was good to beat this deck just because I kept losing to this deck. I don't know why. I just didn't have enough spell or traps to bait out the interaction, and he just took the bait each and every time. So I was very pleased with that. Use Clockwork Knight to tribute it, and then it has, of course, a follow-on effect. Tribute his monster once again, and then look, he's already reduced his life points to 4,000 again. So yeah, it puts us in a great spot. But he had some moves. This guy was able to negate all my monster's effects, but again, Verte Anaconda. This card should be banned. I'm not even going to lie to you. This card should 100% be banned. It's too strong. Like, look, it made the OTK like viable. So yeah, but that's pretty much the last replay, guys. Why don't we jump straight into the 3 replays? Well, I'll put 4 because there's one of them I lost from the recent TCG event, and then we will wrap up the video from there. Very quickly, guys, I just want to quickly go through the deck list that I used for the TCG event before I go into the final 4 replays. So you'll notice there's no free Maxi because this is TCG, and we only have 1 Call by the Grave, so I had 4 spots available. So I just added a 2nd Naxter, 2nd Kaiju, 3rd Thrust, and then Nibiru, because I wasn't really sure what kind of decks, you know, everyone was going to be playing. And then of course I took out Verte Anaconda because it is banned in the TCG, and yeah, rightfully so, but I did sorely miss it in a lot of my games here, so you'll notice in a minute. Anyway, so this first matchup is against Dogmatica and Pure Dogmatica. So you're going to see the level 12 Ritual Monster, which I think is actually very powerful. You know, 4,000 attack and defense, as well as unaffected by monster effects from the extra deck. So yeah, I thought that was pretty strong. But it's very clear this guy didn't have full combo, because I was trying to stop him from getting Ecclesia, which he already has. And the reason I wanted to stop him is so that he didn't have Dogmatic Punishment, but it seems he was not able to do that. I'm pretty sure the 2 cards in his hand are both Droll. I think they're both Droll anyway. But either way, when you look at the hand I've got a searchable Kaiju. So it doesn't even matter. You get rid of, you know, Zoa. He uses his... Oh, so it was Ash, not Droll. uses his Ash very early, and then we have full combo from here, so it doesn't really matter to us. And yeah, very pleased. It's very easy to make Cyber Dragon Infinity with this deck, particularly if you have Galaxy Soldier. So yeah, you just go into this, continue the combo, extend, attach Ecclesia, and then unfortunately we do not have 8,000 damage on the board, so we have 7,800. And this is where I sorely missed Verte Anaconda, because I could just go into Rampage Dragon. I'll just quickly pause there. So I could go into Rampage Dragon, which is 2100 attack, and then it's 3 attacks, so it's essentially it's 6,300 damage if it's an open board. And I really wish I had that. I could have just won the game from there. But anyway, he used Ultimate Slayer, which I referred to earlier. He had to get rid of my Fusion Monster because he needed the extra draw. And that told me he was very desperate. So I used my Omni Negate to stop his only play. And then look, like I said, he had Droll in his hand, and it doesn't matter. It's unfortunate for him, but he did the job for me. So yeah, that's the first duel. Let's go into the second match, which is against Exo Sister. Now, in my opinion, Exo Sister is one of the best decks out there. I think it's severely underplayed, but I think it's so strong. Like, they have those 2 traps that allow them to play on your turn. They can banish your cards, non-target banish with the boss. It's just ridiculous how many plays they have. But anyway, when I saw Aratama, I thought it could have been Mathmech as well. But yeah, again, look, we saw Caspitel, so I just thought, I'll Ash it, disrupt the play a little bit. I knew he had other Exo Sisters in hand. There's no way he didn't, just because the deck is quite consistent. And then yeah, just let him go into a full end board. Now, the beauty of Cyber Dragons is that no one expects you to play it. So the fact that I have a searchable Kaiju, but I didn't need to in this particular case, is wonderful. So yeah, I just out his monster. I got the 2 traps, and then he fucking Drolls me. Droll is huge, by the way, guys. It may not seem like much, but it kills Cyber Emergency, completely kills Cyber Repair, because in particular against Exo Sister, I can't even use the second effect, which is to shuffle a monster from my graveyard into the deck. Well, that sucks, because it would just trigger all of his effects. So I had to be very careful about how I went about this. Make sure I didn't, you move anything out of the graveyard. Otherwise, it would have triggered a whole ensemble of effects. But either way, I had the Omni Negate for his final interruption, and look, he's already put his damage down for us, because they have to pay a lot of life points just to do, very simple things. And yeah, we got the win in the end. So I was very, very pleased. And that is the second one. So for the third, I'm going to put the third win first, and then I can discuss the loss, because this loss is pretty much a representation of every loss that this deck faces. Because again, sometimes going second really, really sucks, but we'll touch on that in a moment. So this final game is against Plunder Patrol. Did I say that right? Yeah, Plunder Patrol. So this deck in particular, I don't even actually understand all of the plays. I don't even know the most ideal end board, so I didn't know if he got full combo or if he had a shit combo. Maybe one of you can let me know in the comments, but I thought he had a few interruptions to deal with. So because I have a Kaiju and an Impermanence, I thought, what, I'm in a pretty good spot here. So I thought, what, I will Imperm this, because it says during the main phase, so I can use Imperm in the standby phase, and then this just means on any point on my turn. So I thought, what, I may as well Imperm this, Kaiju this, and then I should be pretty much golden from there. But it turns out a lot of their cards like to go to the graveyard to trigger certain effects. So even though the fusion was negated, the actual card going to the graveyard has an additional effect. So, but yeah, unfortunately for him, he doesn't know I have Clockwork in hand. So tribute the entire field. And again, Verte Anaconda was missed, but I was still able to get the job done with Cyber Dragon Seeger, because look, 8,000 damage on the board, or 8,100 damage on the board. So enough to go for game. Anyway, let's go on to our final replay, guys. So this is actually where I lost. This might be the first time I show losing replays. This was against Labyrinth, but what I meant by this game will be a very good example of how we can lose most of our games if we don't have the right cards in our hand. So I believe I draw Nibiru against this deck. Yeah, so Nibiru against Labyrinth is already a bad matchup card, because they're not going to summon 5 times. It's very, very rare that they would do so. And Imperm can only be used in very particular scenarios. So the only time I'm going to be able to use it from the hand is going second, or if they for some reason special summon during, while I have no cards on the field. So, and then Raigeki as well isn't that useful, so I'm not in a great spot here. And then you'll see right now he floodgates me. How annoying. But even without the floodgate, I wouldn't have been able to do anything anyway. So it's yeah, it is what it is. So, and he was a smart player. I'll give him his his flowers. He really did choose the right decisions at the right times. So he would get rid of, he put Lady Labyrinth back to the hand, and then look, Dimensional Barrier as well. So yeah, he'd put Lady Labyrinth back to the hand, and then he would resummon it in the end phase. So it wasn't even like I could kaiju it anyway. So yeah, truly unfortunate, but these things happen anyway. So yeah, so let's have a look. What was my final card? Cyber Dragon. And yeah, I can't do anything. Overload Fusion. All of the fusion monsters are dark attribute, and then as you saw, he had Dimensional Barrier. So this is a example of a particular matchup where he pretty much has everything tailored to the approach. But against Branded, I have tried to play through their strongest end boards, but yeah, unless they slip up at some point, that's pretty much it. They have to slip up at some point for me to take an opportunity to win the game. But if they do everything, to the the handbook of Branded, they win every time. Like, it's a really good deck. They have a lot of versatility and recyclable materials in play. So yeah, it puts me in a really tough spot. Particularly Fallen of Albaz. If they can get that on the field on my turn, they just fuse away my most valuable monster anyway. So yeah, I don't really get much of a say in that. But that's pretty much all the replays, guys. Why don't we jump on to the conclusion, and I can wrap up this video with my final thoughts on the deck. So guys, to wrap up the video, I just wanted to highlight how much fun I've had playing this deck. I know I say that about every deck I play, and I realise that, and I really shouldn't say it too much, because otherwise it doesn't really give off the impression I like playing any of them. But Cyber Dragons really gave me a reminder as to how much you should just enjoy playing a game. I remember I used to play going blind second OTK Crusadia, and that was during the Telements Tier 0 format, and breaking and obliterating a board like that was just, it just brought so much joy to actually just play the game that way. Whereas now everything is about going first. So in my opinion, it's good to have a backup deck like Cyber Dragons or Crusader, whatever you like. Yeah, doesn't even have to be a blind second deck, just something that you have fun playing. I'm just putting Cyber Dragon out there as one of those decks, just because it's good to take a break from climbing the rank ladder or however you play this game, and then having a deck that is just for pure fun. Like, I might even go back to Dark Magician. I loved playing that deck. I just think in the current format it is far too slow. Like, it's too bad. It's really bad. So yeah, like, if it had like an upgrade, then maybe I would even consider it, because yeah, they're my favorite cards from the anime. But yeah, in the current format, I might just have those decks for fun, and I should just play those decks for fun. So I guess this is more of a gentle reminder that, look, play the game as seriously as you want, but you should also have the fun aspect. Otherwise, you're getting annoyed, upset, or angry at a video game, which I know sounds rich coming from myself, but yeah, when you take a third perspective look at how you react to these games, it is kind of just like, I shouldn't get this annoyed, and I shouldn't let it annoy me, because these games are built to have frustrating features in them, like Max C. Like, we all know that's an injustice to a game. So yeah, but either way, guys, I just wanted to wrap it up there and say Cyber Dragons is a very fun deck. By all means, copy the deck list I have. Like I said, I've borrowed it. I've copied it exactly from a Master 1 player. So very impressed. Flowers to him. Very impressed. But either way, if you want to play it seriously, look, just brace yourself for some patience. But if you want to play for fun, this is definitely a good deck for that. So if you have any questions about the replays, by all means, please shoot them in the comments, or any questions in general. But until then, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.